Zenos, back on track. But more on that in a bit, because here is a development mule of the new Zenos Z10, which should go back into proper manufacture in February next year. A quick recap, then. Zenos was launched in 2014 under the guidance of former Lotus and Caterham duo Mark Edwards and Ansar Ali. The first car out of the block was the E10, a two-seat, mid-engine roadster with one of the cheaper carbon fiber composite material tubs and a Ford 20-liter, naturally aspirated engine behind it driving the rear wheels. There were no doors and no windscreen as standard, and it was built down to a price below £25,000. Then there was a 250 bhp turbocharged version called the E10S, priced at just under £30,000, and later the E10R arrived, with a 2.3-liter Ford EcoBoost turbo and 350 bhp. And it was good. Okay, there were a few rough edges when it came to finish, but you'd expect them on a car that was built down to its price. The fundamentals were there. It rode, it steered, it went, the brakes needed a mighty shove, but for the most part the E10 was enjoyable. And, crucially, Zenos had done, so they reckoned, what most new small manufacturers forget to do, pay attention to how much it costs to build. To an extent, the plan was working. You could buy the cheap one, but hardly anyone did. However, they did buy other E10s. There are around 120 Zenoses on the road, half in the UK, about 25 in the United States and the rest elsewhere. What often goes wrong? Cash flow. A lot of things at once that, fundamentally, led to one big thing, the money running out. That was in January. In March, it was announced that a consortium fronted by AC Cars, owned by Alan Lubinsky for a little over 20 years and whose sporadic production has moved around since, had taken on Zenos and its factory near Wymondham, Norfolk. However, it won't stay there, because production is moving to South Africa after the car gets some necessary upgrades. But here we'll move on to the car, which still looks like any other Zenos to me. This is a test mule, says John Peakvout, an engineer who has moved over to the new company from the old one, so please overlook the rough edges. But, frankly, it isn't so far away from the old one in terms of fit and finish anyway. This model is an E10S, the 20-turbo car. But even since March, some notable changes have been made. The car was 95 right, says Lubinsky, but there were problems. There were the weak-feeling brakes, which have been replaced by 6-piston jobs, but there was also a really noisy air intake system, which sat behind your head and made earplugs or a helmet a necessity. That has been moved to one of the side air intakes, an area itself made available by solving another problem. Zenos has fitted a water-to-air charge cooler, whose radiator now sits at the front. Previously, the air intercooler sat in the side pod, but, along with the engine radiator at the front, it didn't keep the turbo or engine cool enough under prolonged track use, so the AQ would retard the ignition and the car would lose some power after a few laps. A new shroud behind the front grille channels air to those radiators better now. There's a new roll cage in the pipeline too, offering the strength of the one you see here but rather better integrated into the rear hoops. All of which adds a few kilos, but this is still a sub 800 kilograms car. All of these things are retrofittable to existing E10s, says Lubinsky. We'll get retrofittable upgrades first, then move on to more development afterwards, he confirms. Zenos' earlier plan was to introduce an E11 coupe, and it still intends to. First, though, I have a go in this car. And it's good, you know. All of the things that made it so appealing in the first place are still there. It rides really well, with a combination of bump absorption and body control that you don't find too often, and when you do, it's often in a car from Norfolk. The unassisted, two-turn steering is heavy at parking speeds but lightens up as you get moving, regains weight again when you lean on it in corners, and offers terrific tactile feedback and road feel with only a little nibbling under braking. The brakes are now fine too, they still want to shove, as unassisted brakes do, but they'll stop this car just fine. The handling is agile, adjustable and rewarding. Now that the air intake has moved, you can go helmetless. There's precious little buffeting and, while the engine zings and its turbo fizzes, it's a decent noise. There's a new exhaust too, and no longer deafening. Power is now 260 bhp, there's only a little lag and the 6-speed Ford gearbox to which it's mated is slick enough. But, then, dynamically it always was. There'll be a few interior changes too, to keep the cool digital screens visible in sunlight and weatherproof the switches. The 20E10s, at the start of this year, was around £35,000 in this spec, with a windscreen fitted, again. Hardly any worse old without one. Zenos doesn't want to offer too many options, because it complicates matters and they wanted saleable dealer stock. But while it's too early to say what final pricing will be because tooling hasn't even reached South Africa yet, the idea is that it won't rise too much from there, which is a more eyebrow-raising figure than the initial Zenos plan, but you've got to make a living. You'll be able to buy it in most countries and as few as 50 cars a year or more would initially keep Zenos happy. So it could well work. It's certainly good enough to drive. Zenos, an economic migrant. Today, the signs read AC Zenos on Unit 35 at Hethel Engineering Center, the Norfolk Enterprise Park for tech companies. It is next to, but independent of, Lotus Cars headquarters, although most of the engineers here are ex-Lotus staff. I have come here to find out about Zenos' rebirth. Zenos started here and it will stay in the UK at the new location too, but it won't build cars here. Production is moving to South Africa, says company chief Alan Lubinsky, because labor there is more affordable and the Zenos, like all low-volume cars, is a labor-intensive build. There's a company called Hi-Tech in South Africa, which used to make chassis for Noble and now punts out cars under the Superformance brand. Its Shelby Daytona Coupe is a thing of wonder. There's good craftsmanship at a lower price than in the UK and, while it's hoped that some UK suppliers will stay on board, Zenos plans to make more in-house than was performed in Britain. Zenos' facility in Wymondham mostly performed assembly rather than actual fabrication, with it outsourced to suppliers. Will it matter to buyers that this isn't a British manufacturing company? Personally, I doubt it.